We broke in our new pit last week with a pork butt and it did a fantastic job. So the next logical thing for me to cook is ribs. So we're gonna put this M&M Texas Smoke King to the test today on a rack of Texas style spare ribs. Have ourselves a beautiful rack of full spare ribs. We're gonna trim these up to start, flip over. We wanna pull up this flap or skirt meat here and get this trimmed off. It's also a pretty big chunk of fat right here, so we'll take that down a little bit. And we have this big bone on the end that we want to take off. So we can kind of see where it starts. Just cut through with our knife. Full of cartilage, don't want to eat that. And that's it for the backside. I leave the membrane on so there's nothing to take off there. Flip them over, and on this inside here I usually like to take the first bone off. It's real thin on this side and you've got the bone on the edge right there. So I like to take that off. And actually we're going to flip it back over here. Some little tiny bones over here. So we'll take that off. Kind of round this off a little bit. Take a little bit of this top off, not too much. Round off our corners. There we go. Simple as that. Beautiful rack of spare ribs ready to be seasoned. For our seasoning, we're keeping it simple. Diamond Crystal kosher salt. And 16 mesh coarse black pepper. Get them flipped over and repeat. And these just came out of a vacuum seal package. They have enough tackiness, so I don't think it's necessary to use a binder, but if you like to use one, feel free. These are nicely seasoned, so let's go fire up the pit. To fire the pit up, we're using the exact same setup as we did for the pork butt. Log on each side, one on top, and some match light in the middle. Fire is nice and hot and ready to go. I did have to move that top log from being horizontal to the bottom logs to more in line. There was too much of an air gap. Wasn't really producing much flame after our match light went out, but moving it kind of down in the middle where it still had a tiny bit of airflow solved our problem. So let's get our ribs on. Just gonna put them right in the middle. Make sure they're nice and straight. Bunch up a little bit. Much like the last cook, I'm going to start off with the fire door damper wide open. We're going to put the stack at about 20% open or 80% closed. We're going to let these rock at 225 for the first couple hours of the cook. Take on a lot of good smoke flavor, start building up that color, and we'll be back to check in on them after a couple hours. Right at 2 hours into our cook and our ribs are looking fantastic. They're starting to take on some good color. The rub has set to the meat. We've been able to rely on the 3 logs we started our fire with for the entire part of the first 2 hours. When the middle log burned up, I ended up taking one of the side logs, putting it over the top of the other. That gave us a little bit more of a heat source. So we made it 2 hours with just 3 logs. I did just add a new log onto the fire. I'm using full-size splits, not making any alterations to the wood, using it how I received it. I got some questions in my last video on how long a split lasts. We'll figure that out today. But for now, we're gonna bump our tips up to 250 for the next couple of hours, let them keep rocking and rolling, and managing our fire. 4 hours into the cook and our ribs are looking absolutely fantastic. Been going about 250 degrees for the last 2 hours. Temping at about 163 degrees. Have some fantastic color on this. We're not spritzing, there's no water pan in the pit. We're not using a blocking log. Running it as is, and couldn't be happier with the color and how they're looking up to this point. And from a fire perspective, we're still running the damper at 80% closed or 20% open, and we've been getting about 40 minutes per split. Pit puts off great smoke, but it's also very efficient from a split perspective. What I've been doing is right before a split breaks down, I'll move it to the side and then add a new split. And that's been keeping us right around 250 degrees. For the last bit of this cook, we're gonna bump it up to 275 degrees. Might have to mess with the damper a bit, but ideally we'll just move the split over a little earlier than we normally would, add a new one, and ideally that'll get us to 275. That's what worked out well for the pork butt. Also, the pit is in the sun right now, so that should add some heat as well. But we're gonna shut this down, let it keep cooking, and in the meantime, let's go make a barbecue sauce. For our barbecue sauce, we're gonna start off with some ketchup, a little bit of yellow mustard, some Worcestershire, some coarse black pepper, a little bit of salt, some granulated garlic, chili powder, some paprika, cayenne pepper, some crushed red pepper, a little bit of celery seed, some brown sugar, some hot sauce. I'm going with this Melinda's fire roasted garlic and habanero, some apple cider vinegar, and some water. We'll get our heat turned on, whisk this up, and then taste to adjust. I'll have estimates on measurements for everything that I've put in here in the description down below, but fun thing about making barbecue sauces at home is to make it your own. The world is your oyster. We just want this to be a little thin, that way it doesn't clump up when we wrap our ribs. 6.5 hours after we put our ribs on, and they are done. They are looking absolutely fantastic. Did not plan to not wrap them. I was planning on wrapping them with the sauce that we made, but they were looking good throughout the cook, so we let them just keep rolling. Got a nice dark color. Very happy with how they turned out. Now let's wrap these up in some of our sauce. Just gonna give them a nice heavy coating in that barbecue sauce that we made. Pat it around, smear it around a bit, flip it over and get the other side as well. Make sure everything's nice and coated. I'll wrap these up nice and tight. So now we're going to take these inside, let them come down to 140, slice into them and eat. Whew, getting hot. Our ribs have come down to 140, so let's see how they look. Unwrap them. That is a good looking rack of smoked ribs. Great color, nice and saucy. Let's cut them up and see how they taste. The sliced ribs, I always like to do it bone side up. So let's flip these over and start slicing. Our ribs are looking excellent. Can't wait any longer. It's time to dig in. Let's see how these taste. Gotta grab a napkin. These are ridiculously good. Perfectly cooked. Pulling off the bone, bite off the bone, but not fall off the bone, which is where I like it to be. They have a fantastic flavor. Full of smoke, full of salt, full of pepper, full of that barbecue sauce that we made and put on it, but none of them are too overpowering. It really is a delicious rib. It's got a fantastic bark without being too tough. We didn't wrap these ribs when they were in the pit. Again, as I mentioned, I was planning on wrapping them. The color just looked great throughout the cook and the temperature kept rising and there was no need to wrap, so I didn't. But we still got all the flavor from the sauce by wrapping them when they were done. And this is actually the first rib I've smoked on an offset since New Year's Eve of 2023. I love a direct heat rib, but man, it is nice to have a good, tender offset rib every now and again. So we're gonna continue to put the Texas Smoke King through the paces. If you've got anything you wanna see me cook on it, please leave it in the comments down below. Make sure you subscribe so you see the videos when they do come out, and I'm gonna demolish this rack of ribs. We'll see you in the next one.